I guess I've always collected objects, but I've never been scared to destroy objects, to understand them, not just destroy them for the sake of it, but to actually take things apart, so that I can understand what they are. And I've always done this. I remember even when I was a little boy, just discovering what a screw was, and there was a pencil sharpener, and I can't remember, something that was like a screwdriver, and I undid the little screw, and I was just so fascinated by, there was the plastic thing, the screw, and a blade, and I was just really ecstatic about this. But I've always taken things apart and put them back together. I've always collected objects with the idea of exploring the objects, not just having them, but actually using them as tools to think with. For the Palindrome series, I was invited to work with two materials, which were plaster and mirror. And the original project that I started working on for this was literally using plaster and mirrors, but I became more and more interested in the bizarre quality of mirrors, of symmetry, of reflections, and because the idea of something being reflected is it's Freudian. It's very strange reaction that we have when we see something that's symmetrical. It's a very powerful psychological response that we have to these symmetrical objects. We think they're animals. We think they're something either it's a friend or it's an enemy. It's a very powerful response. And then I started thinking more and more about furniture. Why do we make symmetrical furniture? Why do we create these objects which are, they have animal qualities, they have this symmetry? It's not necessarily more efficient, to make a symmetrical object. Sometimes it is, but it's not always a necessity. But we do think that beautiful things are symmetrical. So the Palindrome series was really about responding to this idea of the doppelganger, the two reflected sides coming together in one object. So I'm developing this project now for release in September, just before September, and it will be actually digitally printed. So the wood will be laser scanned and then printed in 3 dimensions, 3D printing, rapid prototyping. And so there you will have pure reflections of objects, and I think it will look very special. It's funny, very often people see that I primarily work with wood, but it's really not my main interest. My interest is in forms and controlling forms, which is maybe because my sort of previous education was sculpture, but actually more than that, it was when I was a child. I enjoyed using forms and changing forms and playing around with forms, and the material is never absolutely the goal of the project, and I really hope that my projects transcend the material. I think that's very important. I love wood, but I don't fetishize wood. I never think of it as more than what it is. And the reason I use wood is very easy to work with. It's a very quick way to experiment with forms, and that's much more important to me than, wow, look at this pau Brasil. It's Brazilian rosewood. It's amazing, but it's not what I'm about. I hope that my work shows that there's core concepts which are more important than just enjoying materials. And I live near a huge park in London. It's this beautiful park in London, and my house is one side of the park and the studio is the other side of the park. So very often I'm collecting material from the park on the way to the studio. So I think there's a natural relationship between sort of who I am, where I am, and the work. When I was living in Rio, I wasn't really a designer, and I was not looking for design as, I wasn't looking for furniture and all these things. But at the same time, if you see the photographs I have from this period of my life, there's so much of, street furniture, small objects that you see that people have just made in the Mercado de Nordestinos, weird locations where you find strange objects. So I'm always, just because I'm interested in objects, and Rio's it's got good sunlight, so everything looks fantastic. Even the sort of the worst places, sometimes they look really alive. And I think the sort of the Brazilian attitude is very vibrant, very alive. And I think that translates into the objects very much. A lot of the furniture, a lot of the simple objects that people make, they seem almost like toys to me. And I quite like that levity, that lightness of approach to life.